Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're going to be looking at a Reddit thread about why a certain character's death in the anime Demon Slayer was just so sad
Oh, interesting.
for a lot of the fans. And even if you haven't seen the show, stick with us because it gets into some pretty interesting stuff about like how stories work on us emotionally.
I think that's a really great point, Just this idea that a seemingly simple question on Reddit can unlock all these different insights into storytelling.
Yeah.
And how is it that certain narratives can just resonate with us on such a deep level?
Mm-hmm.
And why do some fictional deaths, why do they stay with us long after the credits roll? There's a lot to unpack in this thread.
Yeah, the thread starts off with this user, Mr. Good Vibe, and he just kind of puts it out there. He's like, shit, why is Rengoku's death so sad? And like reading through the responses, you can tell that question like really touched a nerve with people.
Absolutely.
A lot of fans were right there with him feeling that same sadness.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting is how many of them pointed to Rengoku's personality as this key factor
Right.
in why his death was so impactful.
Right.
He's consistently described as this like hukeable character embodying just unwavering positivity and this goodness, even when he's facing these terrifying demons.
And user JMR7688 makes a really good point about how Rengoku's motivations are a little different than some of the other demon slayers.
Right.
He's not driven by revenge or anything like that, but by this like pure desire to protect others.
Yeah.
It's almost like his selflessness makes his death even more tragic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there's something, deeply resonant about a character who is willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good.
Yeah.
And it taps into our own values and ideals,
Mm-hmm.
making his loss, feel even more personal, even though it's happening in this fictional world.
You can't help but admire him, and then to see him go out like that, it just gets you. User Litton's Tiny Mittens even admitted to holding it together until they saw like a ghost of Rengoku's mother.
Oh, wow.
And that's when the waterworks started.
I think adding the mother's presence there definitely intensifies the emotional impact because it reminds us that the sacrifice is not just about him.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the ripple effect of loss.
Right.
It's about the loved ones left behind.
Yeah,
And so it just elevates it from sad to absolutely heartbreaking.
totally. And then you have user Incoherent Jedi, who kind of sums up the collective grief with this simple phrase, Aniki. Now, for those who don't know, Aniki means like big brother in Japanese.
Oh, okay.
It's a term of endearment and respect. So it really shows how strongly viewers connected with Rengoku in a relatively short amount of time.
That single word, I think, speaks volumes. Because it tells us that the viewers weren't just sad. They felt like they had lost someone close to them, like a brother, a friend, a hero. And that's the power of good character development.
But, as many fans pointed out, Rengoku's death, it wasn't just about, like, tugging at our heartstrings. It served a larger purpose in the story. One user, who I won't name because their comment was deleted, argued that it was necessary to show how powerful the antagonists are in the show. Yeah, the upper moons, as they're called.
Right, that's an important point because to really understand the stakes of the story, you need to see the consequences of failure, even when those consequences are devastating.
Yeah.
So Rengoku's death really underscores how dangerous these demons are.
Right.
And it throws the hero's world into sharp relief.
It's like a wake-up call for the characters and the audience.
Exactly.
Like no one is safe. Even the strongest warriors can fall.
It forces the surviving characters to grapple with their own mortality and the weight of their responsibility.
Right.
And for us as viewers, it really amps up the tension and makes us wonder, okay, if Rengoku can be defeated, then who else is in danger?
And this leads to a really interesting question that some users brought up, like what makes certain character deaths resonate more than others?
Yeah.
They mentioned some other impactful anime deaths, like Rui from Demon Slayer and Mirio losing his quirk in My Hero Academia.
It's a fascinating comparison because while those deaths are undeniably sad, there's something about Rengoku's demise that seems to hit a little differently.
Yeah.
And the Reddit thread explores some of those reasons why.
One user, A Fallen One, points to Rengoku's final line, where he asks his mother if he did well and used his gifts wisely, as particularly impactful.
It's gut-wrenching, because even in his final moments, he's not seeking validation for himself, but for his mother.
Yeah.
It's just such a selfless act that drives home the depth of his character and the tragedy of his loss.
And Dukan highlighted the background music, Rengoku's Last Smile, as like a key element that amplifies the emotional weight of that scene.
Music can definitely make or break a scene. And in this case, it seems like the composers really nailed it because music has this incredible power to tap into our emotions directly. And so a well-crafted score can take the sadness, the heroism, the tragedy of a moment, and make it linger in our minds long after the scene is over. It's almost like the music itself becomes another character, adding its own voice to the emotional narrative.
This discussion also got into this idea of context. Some fans felt that the fact that we got to know Rengoku so well in the movie arc before he died made his loss even more impactful. It's like we were given time to connect with him, understand his complexities, and then suddenly he's gone.
And there's almost this sense of betrayal. Like the rug was pulled out from under us because we were invested in his journey, we were rooting for him, and then bam, he's taken away. And that unexpected loss can be so difficult to process.
The deeper the connection, the sharper the pain.
And
speaking of connection, we can't forget about the reactions from Tanjiro Zenitsu and Inosuke. Seeing them break down and grieve and vow to honor Rengoku's memory just adds another layer of emotional depth to that whole scene.
Their grief mirrors our own. You know, it reminds us that we're not alone in our feelings and that these fictional deaths can evoke very real, very powerful emotions in all of us.
User Branjitsu even argued that Rengoku's death was a turning point for those three, forcing them to kind of mature and confront the realities of their world. It's like a coming-of-age moment, but with this heavy dose of sorrow.
Loss has a way of accelerating growth, doesn't it? It forces us to reevaluate our priorities and grapple with these big questions about life and death and what it all means. And for Tanjiro Zenitsu and Inosuke Rengoku's death becomes this catalyst for their development as demon slayers and as people.
So his legacy lives on through them, inspiring them to become stronger, more compassionate, and even more dedicated to their cause. But even with all this talk about narrative necessity and character development, it's clear that Rengoku's death resonated with viewers on a much more personal level.
It goes beyond just appreciating a well-written story. It connects with something more profound, something universal about the human experience. You know, loss, grief, the struggle to find meaning in the face of tragedy. These are themes that resonate with everyone, whether they're anime fans or not.
And that's what makes this whole discussion so fascinating. It reminds us that storytelling at its best can transcend just pure entertainment and become like a reflection of our own lives, our struggles, our search for connection and meaning. It's like we use these stories to like work through our own feelings, to process our fears and hopes and connect with something bigger than ourselves.
Precisely, they give us this safe space to confront those difficult emotions, to explore those different perspectives and find comfort in shared experiences.
I mean, when a character we've like grown attached to dies, it can feel like a personal loss, reminding us of our own mortality, or even like triggering unresolved grief or trauma.
It's true, those fictional deaths, they can really stir things up, but I think they can also provide an opportunity for growth and reflection, even helping us find meaning and purpose in our own lives.
A lot of the users shared how deeply they were affected by Rengoku's passing. One significant sad 3438 mentioned that while the death itself wasn't what got to them, the scenes with his mother and Tanjiro's raw grief really drove home the weight of the loss.
That's a powerful testament to the power of empathy. Even if we haven't experienced a similar loss, witnessing the genuine sorrow of others can still move us very deeply.
And it goes beyond just feeling sad. It's about recognizing the impacts these characters have on us. The way they make us think, feel, and even question our own perspectives.
Absolutely. Take Skokunet, for example. They mentioned that even hearing Rengoku's name in later episodes brings back this flood of emotions. It just speaks to the enduring power of his character, you know? The way he continues to resonate with viewers long after his death.
It's like his spirit lives on, not just in the story, but in the hearts of those who were touched by his courage, his kindness, his dedication to protecting others. And get this, user, Phoenix Vixen, shared that even replaying Rengoku's death in the Demon Slayer video game brought them to tears.
Wow, that just highlights the immersive nature of storytelling, right? A well-crafted narrative can blur the lines between fiction and reality, making us feel like we're experiencing these events firsthand.
We're right there in the story, invested in the characters and their fates.
Yeah.
Feeling their joys and sorrows as if they were our own.
And so when a character we've come to care for is taken away, it's only natural to grieve, to feel that loss deeply, even though it's happening in this fictional world.
It reminds us that even these fantastical stories about demon slayers and supernatural powers can hold up a mirror to our own humanity, reminding us of what it means to connect, to lose, to love, and to find meaning in the face of adversity.
While many of the users focused on the emotional impact of Rengoku's death, others, like Spartan Cram, pointed to different moments in this series as being more emotionally charged for them.
This brings up a really interesting point. Like, emotional resonance is subjective. You know, it's shaped by our own experiences, preferences, and interpretations.
Exactly. There's no right or wrong way to respond to a story.
Right.
What matters is that we allow ourselves to be open to the experience.
Yeah.
To feel those emotions that arise and to engage with the narrative on a personal level.
Speaking of different interpretations, we can't ignore the comparisons that some users made to other impactful character deaths in anime, Rui's death in Demon Slayer, and even Mirio losing his quirk in My Hero Academia were brought up.
It's fascinating to see how different stories approach those themes of loss and sacrifice. Each narrative offers its own unique perspective, exploring that emotional and psychological impact on both the characters and the audience.
User Deleted mentioned crying more during Rui's death, especially because of the reunion with his parents in the afterlife.
Oh, wow.
It shows how elements like family dynamics and spiritual beliefs can influence our emotional response to a story.
Absolutely. Storytelling is this intricate tapestry woven from multiple threads, like character development, plot, twists, thematic explorations, cultural influences, and personal experiences. And each viewer brings their own unique perspective to that tapestry, creating a personal and nuanced interpretation of the narrative.
So this brings us to the big question. Why do we care so much about the deaths of fictional characters?
Right.
Why does it matter if a demon slayer or a superhero meets their end in this made-up world?
Because at their core, stories are about human experiences, even when they're wrapped in these fantastical settings and supernatural elements.
It's like these stories provide a framework for understanding our own emotions, for navigating the complexities of life and death, and finding meaning in the face of loss.
Right.
And sometimes, seeing a fictional character die can inspire us to live more fully, to cherish our connections, and make the most of the time that we have.
It's a powerful reminder that even in fiction, there's truth. And that truth can resonate with us on such a profound level, shaping our perspectives and inspiring us to live more meaningful lives.
Bringing it back to our deep dive, Rengoku's death in Demon Slayer wasn't just a plot point or a tearjerker moment. You know, it sparked all these conversations about heroism, sacrifice, the power of storytelling, and the nature of grief.
And what's particularly striking is how this discussion unfolded in this seemingly simple Reddit thread. It shows just how passionate fans are about these stories and how deeply they think about them. They're not just passively watching, they're analyzing the nuances, the symbolism, the emotional core of what they're seeing.
It's like they're on this collective quest for meaning together. And it goes way beyond just watching a show. They're connecting with each other and having these profound conversations about life, death, and everything in between.
That's the beauty of storytelling. It brings people together. It ignites conversations. It allows us to explore those complexities of the human experience in a safe and engaging way.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we're left with one final thought for you to ponder. Why do you think some fictional deaths affect us so deeply? What makes a story stick with you long after you've finished it? What characters, real or fictional, have left a lasting impression on you, and why? We've been talking about this whole thing with Rengoku's death in Demon Slayer and how it hit fans so hard. And, you know, it's clear that it's more than just a sad scene in an anime. It started all these really interesting conversations about storytelling and loss and heroism and what it means to really connect with fictional characters.
It reminds us that stories, when they're done well, can offer us this way to process our own experiences and emotions. They give us a framework for understanding the world around us and these complexities of just being human.
And those fictional deaths, sometimes, like with Rengoku, can be surprisingly powerful. It makes us think about our own lives, our values, and how we choose to live in the face of loss and uncertainty.
And it's so fascinating how all those discussions unfolded on Reddit. Just a simple question about, why is Rengoku's death so sad? turned into this incredible exploration of storytelling, character development,
Right.
and the emotional impact of these well-crafted narratives.
It really shows how passionate fans are about these stories. They're not just watching for entertainment.
Absolutely.
They're engaging with the material,
Yeah.
thinking about it, finding deeper meaning.
And what's really special is how all of those individual responses came together to form this collective conversation.
Yeah.
It's like they were all on this journey together, sharing their thoughts, their feelings, connecting with each other through this shared love of the story.
It just highlights the power of storytelling to bring people together and create that sense of community, even though they were just strangers on the internet. They found this common ground in their emotional response to Rengoku's death.
And that shared experience can be so powerful. It allows us to feel seen and understood,
Right.
to connect with others who have been touched by the same story,
Yeah.
to find comfort in knowing that we're not alone in how we react.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a question to think about. What fictional deaths have really had the biggest impact on you? And what was it about those stories or those characters that made them resonate so deeply?
Think about the stories that have stayed with you long after you've finished them. What truths did they reveal about you,
Right.
about the world, or just about what it means to be human? And how have those stories shaped your understanding of life and loss and the things that really matter?
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experiences, your favorite stories, the characters who have left an impact on your life.
And remember, the power of storytelling lies in its ability to connect us, to make us feel, to challenge how we see things, and to remind us that even in the face of loss and uncertainty, there's beauty and meaning and hope to be found.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Demon Slayer and the emotional power of storytelling. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into those stories that move you at